It's time to meet the overseer of slime. Here's your look at Mattel Master Universe Turtles of Grayskull, Hordak, ruthless master of the ooze pit. While that peon Skeletor pouted over He-Man, Hordak plotted from afar. He gained a valuable new minion in Shredder and used him to infiltrate Snake Mountain. When the time is right, Hordak will strike, and all of Eternia will be his. Well, I guess if you need somebody slimed, you know who to see. Just before, of course, we get a closer look at the Turtles of Grayskull, Hordak. The tape measure is going to tell us that the figure stands at 5¼ inches in height, or the leader of the Horde stands 13 centimeters tall. You'll have to excuse yours truly. I'm battling a bit of a cold right now. Hordak's got problems with slime. I've got problems with slime. Shall we perhaps bring in some of the figures we've already had a look at for the Turtles of Grayskull line? If it means that we don't have to talk about your nose anymore, yes, let's do that. First, speaking of Shredder, here's what the figure looks like along with him. Here's also what he looks like along with Skeletor. Speaking of mutations, were we speaking of mutations? Why not? Here's what the figure also looks like with He-Man. And considering that this is a Hordak after all, why don't we bring in a regular Hordak? Well, not so much a regular Hordak. Here comes the buzzsaw version of him. Four things to look at. We'll start with the first thing, that being the mini-comic. The comic that comes included with Hordak is entitled He-Man in a Half Shell. I can't speak for whether he actually has a half shell on the back of his body. What I'm only currently seeing is a torn and tattered rag He-Man. But what I'm also seeing down below, there's Duncan, there's Michelangelo, Donatello, Leonardo. I don't see Raphael, but I do see April O'Neil, and of course, there's Castle Grayskull. The back, though, does advertise some of those characters. April O'Neil, of course, there's the Hordak, Stealth Ninja Leonardo, and Stealth Ninja He-Man. Really like the look of that He-Man. I've seen some images of him online, and actually, if you don't like all the garb that he has, you can strip down the garb and have a regular He-Man pretty much underneath. Between this and this are obviously the pages inside illustrated. One thing, though, about the Turtles of Grayskull is that they seem to have a beefier comic. Maybe, if anything, they maybe have 1 or 2 extra pages in there. But the pages themselves are nicely done. You've got, of course, Bebop, Rocksteady serving as a too-bad character. While I don't really like the look, honestly, of the Turtles, just some of the other characters in this. One such page drew my attention. It's this one right here. I am a big fan of Stinkor. I don't know if everybody knows that or not, but there's Stinkor. But it's not just though Stinkor alone. He seems to be paired with the Turtles. I'm trying to think of the character. Is it the Drill Bit? I feel like it's Drill Bit. Somebody could correct me down below in the comment section. We've also got an amalgamation of Clawful. I'm not sure what he's amalgamated with. And then we've also got up in the other corner here, right over here, Mossman. I believe that is Mossman. So a lot of cool stuff going on. I honestly really feel like the Turtles are the least interesting thing about Turtles of Grayskull, even though it's their name in the title. There's also Too Bad down below. So why don't we just move the comic off to the side? That little page insert that tells us you can swap and change the parts, it's already been discarded. Before anyone got really attached to it, I never got attached to it in the first place. It's sitting inside the recycling bin. Let's look at the accessories, though, now included with Hordak. The other remaining 3 things, the figure does come included with a pair of wings. First time I think Hordak has ever come included with wings, and I think that they're really neat. They're made of basically a red plastic. You can see that they panel-lined the actual individual fingerlings. I don't know if that's what you would call them. The spines of the wings, they're all painted here in a very shiny black. The wings themselves plug in place, and actually if you look at the back of the figure's body, this whole apparatus here, this armor piece, can be detached if you want to, but that armor is the sole thing keeping his wings in place. See on the back, he's got himself 2 eye holes. It kind of looks like a very snooty looking owl. Ooh. We're going to go ahead and take the wings. When you're plugging them in place, I actually find it helps just to open up the wings first. Kind of give a lay of the land, an idea of whereabouts they're supposed to plug in place. But you got the peg right there. You got the hole right there. It's simple shapes, guys. Simple shapes. We're going to plug that in place. There's on one side. And we'll just do the same thing on the other side here as well. Plug, plug, plug. While you're doing this, though, you might find occasionally the armor wants to shimmy its way up the body. Luckily, there's a head in place to keep everything in place. But that's what it looks like with the wings on the back of his body. You don't like this look. You can probably see already that he has these metal little pins. Basically allows the wings to fold back in place. So if you like maybe the look of him having more so a cape, you can kind of pull that off fairly successfully. I, though, like the idea of him having the wings all out. He likes to really front and center bring those wings out, showcase them. Looks fantastic, though, on Hordak. Again, I suppose you probably could use this armor just to simply detach. You would have to take, of course, obviously the head and the crest piece off. Just remove this all together, and then you could really use then this piece with any other figure. Well, probably except for Buzzsaw Hordak, because that's pretty a built-in body. Kind of like that. Really think that's a neat touch. How about for right now, at least? You know what? We'll just fold the wings down. I was going to say let's remove them, but I don't feel like we have to really do that. I also really like the fact that they've added all this kind of cool detailing on the backs of the wings. They're not just even smooth plastic either. There's a lot of stuff to kind of have your eyes hone in on. A lot of cool details going on there. Anyways, though, detail-wise, Hordak looks good except for one thing. I find his face is absent of details. They're there. You can see them if you look real close. But unfortunately, though, with some things like his nose not being panel-lined in the nostrils, from a distance, though, it sort of looks like he's missing a lot of details. Now, only just to bring in the Buzzsaw Hordak, I probably should have brought in the regular Hordak so you guys could see. They've put at least paint on the inside of his nostrils. Why wouldn't they have done the same for Turtles of Grayskull Hordak? It's the only thing I feel that's kind of lacking on the character. The moment you leave that off, sure, the head sculpt is good, but it just feels like he's missing paint. It really did need that little few extra touches of love. Just added it right there on the front of his nose, and it would have looked like a much better looking Hordak. Now, could I go in there as a talented artist, which I'm not? Could I go in there perhaps with a marker and maybe add in some of those lines? You probably could. But I think that's something that Mattel should have done right out the factory. The rest of his face looks good. The coloring inside of his mouth does go a little bit lost because it's a little bit too light of a red. He's got a more darker red, as you can see, for his eyeballs. They paneled that at least nicely in black. And of course, he's also got himself the mohawk there as well. The head, though, unlike the original Hordak, is a separate piece from his collar. So you can move this actually back and forth, up and down if you want to. I guess, too, really, you could pop the head off and replace it with the regular version of Hordak, too, if you wanted to. You want to see that? All right, fine. I was kind of hoping you guys would have said no. We're just going to pop that off. We're going to just leave his decapitated body here for right now. We're going to remove the head from Buzzsaw Hordak, and let's just put the collar piece in place. I haven't actually tried this yet. I don't know if it's going to fit around the cape. We'll give it the college try. Plug that in place. Yeah, it's probably not going to work as well with Buzzsaw Hordak just because he's got so much busy stuff on the back of his body. I should have stopped before I started go. Anyways, it kind of gives you at least the idea. If you had, though, a regular Hordak, that would be what it would look like. I'm sure at some point, I think if they have already announced, we are going to be getting a cartoon version, a Filmation series version of Hordak that's going to have a more bluer body than the gray that we have right here. So let's go ahead and just put this back on his body. Actually, while the head is off, I just want to show you that the armor is removable. So any figure that has a means of removing armor, in theory, you could take then this armor and put it on their bodies instead. Kind of looks like a cicada. I hate cicadas. Big, juicy kind of... They look like mutated flies. You want to talk about mutations? Cicadas. Not a big fan of those. Plug that back in place. We're going to go ahead and just remove his head, put his head back also in there as well. I want to make sure everything's securely in place, so obviously when I get to the articulation of the figure, the head isn't going to pop off and roll away on me. We've already talked about the fact he's lacking a little bit on the head, but overall, like again, the head sculpt, I think I would grade it pretty high. Maybe, I don't know, like an 8 out of 10. Giving, though, a perfect 10 probably would have just been painting in the nostrils. As for the rest of his body, he's got the Horde symbol there on the front. A little bit larger, a little busier, a little cooler. Really like the look of that. Also, something I really like, though, about Hordak is the fact that this character is known for, obviously, he's the master of the ooze pit. Now, he has himself these little ooze syringes there on the side of his gauntlet. Obviously, with the original Hordak, he would not have had... Well, you could... The original cartoon Hordak usually would not have had a hand on the end of it. The original Hordak figures would have obviously had hands on both of their forearms. Now, this arm, because it has a hole here, you get yourself this little slime attachment. That looks cool. You can just take that and plug it onto the bottom of it, and now you've got himself shooting slime. Just don't point that anywhere near me. I would honestly love maybe to try to take this off and put it on Shredder's body. I'm just kind of going back and looking at Shredder. Would it work as well with him? You probably would have to maybe remove the gauntlet, a little bracelet that he has right here. Obviously, you'd have to remove the blades that he has in his arms, and you'd probably maybe have to even take this off. But I think that would be kind of cool. Maybe adding, Hordak's little, I don't know, ooze blaster there to Shredder. That would look like something Shredder would have had. But I think that's a nice little touch, the fact that they add this little extra piece. Obviously, you don't always have to commit to the idea that this has to be on his arm. We'll just leave it off for right now. The coloring of his blue looks really well with the red and the black. Obviously, he's got himself a few little extra armory pieces there as well, like the little belt piece. This is actually a separate, so if you want to remove this all together, you can. He's got some nice silver down below here also in his boots. They seem to be also using the same boots as the regular Hordak, just molded here, though, in silver. Obviously, he's got himself the more larger feet there as well. I couldn't help but notice that there's a little bit of marbling that they've used here for the plastic, and it's only really in just this silver plastic. It works okay because you're dealing with armor anyways. If that had been, say, someone's skin, I'd probably be a little bit more upset the fact that it looks a little bit more spirally. Other than that, though, nice looking Hordak. I feel like the only thing that's lacking on this character is the things I've already mentioned. Just 1 and 1 right there. Doop, doop. Just little dollops right there of paint. And this guy would have been a complete looking Hordak. As for the figure's articulation, going back, of course, to his head sculpt, now he gets the benefit. Now he gets the benefit of a rotation in his head. You can't really move it up and down all that much because you're now dealing with a collar piece all around this. The collar technically does have a little bit of movement there as well, but he's very limited just because he's so self-contained like this. Still has a waist swivel. You can easily move that back and forth. The arms move out. You can also move them forward and back. He doesn't have any swivel there, obviously, in the bicep. That's not the territory we cover when it comes to Origins figures. But he does have, in fact, though, a swivel in his arm, a hinge back and forth for his elbow, and the hands rotate all the way around. Of course, you're going to look at this as also an articulation piece. The figure does have a swivel right here, and he also has swivels in his wings up top. So if you wanted to, yeah, look how cool you can get these wings going. So that, I guess, technically would be a point right here and a point right there. So 4 points of posability on the back of Hordak's body. Then for his legs, the legs move forward and back. Obviously, you can bring them out as well. A little bit of a swivel, not that much. Single hinge, though, on the lower knee. Rotation in the foot. Hinge up and down, and an ankle rocker there as well. Really like this one. I'm glad I had the chance to pick this guy up. He's been around for a bit. I mean, he's not a super new figure. I'm kind of behind when it comes to Turtles of Grayskull figures, but that does not mean it doesn't change my feelings of the figure. I'm really liking the look of him. Now, of course, taking back Hordak, putting his head back in place. There we go. Here's the Hordak. Obviously, I should have really brought in the original Hordak just for better comparisons, but gives you at least an idea of how different this Hordak is from his original self. And, of course, we can also bring back in Shredder, and we can bring in Skeletor. Keep saying this. I really feel like I like the bad guys more, or the mutations more, than I like the original Turtles. The fact that the line is called Turtles of Grayskull, you would really think, though, that I'd like the Turtles just that little bit more, but I seem to think that the bad guys are really winning it when it comes to better looking figures, better looking sculpting. And in the case, though, of Hordak, the fact that he also has wings on the back that you can remove if you want to, make this guy a must pick up if you haven't picked him up already. Hordak with wings does dastardly things. You can do certainly a lot of things with these wings because he has posability times 4. Each one of the wings have 2 swinging components to them. Of course, that's simple math. That's 4. The thing I like about the wings is that there's some options available when it comes to configuring them. If you like it more like looking like a cape, you can do that. You can have the wings stretched out to the sides, or if you want to go all out like me, they kind of look like he's got gargoyle wings. Now, that little piece of paper that I'm always so quick to throw out, that piece of paper probably would have told all of us that you could swap out the parts and change them around with other Masters figures. That's one of the selling points of Masters line, or at least the Origins line, is that you can have some customizations to them. That in mind, though, you could take really the armor off of Hordak altogether and use it with another figure. I was kind of also as well thinking of as Anti-Eternia He-Man. At one point, I sort of was having him displayed on the shelf, sort of as he was part of the Horde. I might go all out with that idea. Maybe get my hands on a second Hordak and use the armor piece and the wings for Anti-Eternia He-Man. What do you guys think of that? Let me know down below. All in all, though, it's a neat looking Hordak. Whether you choose to have the wings on him or not, the thing I really also like is that they went with a blue body, not just a gray. One way to make him even closer to looking like the Filmation series of him. What do you guys think, though, of Hordak? Let me know down below in the comment section. The figure's been around for a little bit. I finally got my hands on him, though. One of my online go-to sites finally had him in stock. I could have easily got him through eBay, but I didn't want to pay the prices that went along with eBay. Luckily, the place that I always tend to go to, one of my go-to online sites, finally had this guy in stock. And I don't mind paying $30 to $35 for him rather than the $40 or $45 asking price that was over on eBay. If you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid. Throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit the subscribe, turn on that bell, and of course, come back. If you need a little more of a fix for Masters in the meantime, popping up at the very corner, at the adjacent corners, will be Master Universe reviews. So feel free, if you have a little bit of time on your hands, you can go back and look at all the other things I've looked at Masters related. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.